Having realized that the hospital that they had a vision of is a portal to hell, when we return to the Midnight Suns in issue 3, they're figuring out what to do about it. Tulip and Danny Ketch take a moment at the beginning to chat about Blade. He did just attack them last issue, after all. Danny is worried that Tulip is getting cold feet. Blade wouldn't give up on her, she says. She isn't giving up on him. Danny isn't sure about that. The way that Blade looked, he could have killed them, but he didn't. So maybe Blade is still in there somewhere. Floopin' thank you! I've been saying this for months. Tulip wants to believe this when Danny says it, which is when the Rider takes control. The next time he sees Blade, he will know if he's in there or not. But they'll figure that out later. Right now they have a hole in the world to stitch up. Blade can wait. Penance is patient. Woohoo! What a cool moment. My name is Ben, and this is Comic Book Breakdown's continued coverage of Blood Hunt episode 23, The Exorcists. Victoria Montesi and the currently unpossessed by a spirit of vengeance Johnny Blaze chat with the nurse Julie, who we met last issue. They explain the metaphysics behind there's a portal to hell in her hospital and then pitch a way to stop it. They need to manifest whatever is causing the hole between realities, and then they can destroy it, closing the doorway. The trick is that they're going to need her fear to do it. Her fear will be the lure for this creature. It will take her having complete trust in them, but it will stop these nightmares. Julie takes but a moment to consider, and agrees. They all head down into the basement, and Victoria concentrates. She tells Julie to picture her worst fear, and Julie says that's easy. A few years back on Halloween, a college kid was brought in. He had been hit by a car and then burned. That seemed to be all there was to his story. He died, it was terrible, until it wasn't. Julie thought that she had imagined it, but knowing what she knows now, maybe what happened was real. Because that night, the burned corpse sat up in the morgue. Julie fled from the room and talked herself into having just made the whole thing up, one long bad night. Good, Vicky says. Fan that fear into flames. Behind Julie, a spark ignites in the burner behind her. Then it roars into a full flame. The hospital fills with a sickly purple light. The light fixtures all pop. The bulbs breaking. Vicky shouts out the words to a spell, and everything seems to stop. Blood runs from the refrigerated cell where the body had been kept. The door to it swings open. A skinless, deformed thing climbs out. Its screams cut through the hospital. Ghost Rider pats Julie on the shoulder. They have this now. Separate and search. As it moves through the hospital, the monster seems to grow in size. It picks up a scalpel in one hand, while the other seems to grow to twice its normal size. It punches in a door, and it hunts. Julie is getting a snack from a nearby vending machine when it spots her. Don't scream, she whispers to herself. They said not to scream. The monster approaches. Its footsteps leave bloody footprints. Closing in, the thing raises the hand with the scalpel, and 3 Hellfire shotgun blasts tear into it. One destroys the hand with the scalpel, another takes out a chunk of the shoulder, and the final shot blows off half of its head. Johnny, can I scream now? Julie asks. But Johnny Blaze stays cool. Not yet. The monster attempts to roar and charge at them again, but a chain wreathed in flames wraps around it. The rider holds it in place, while Vicky banishes the monster back to hell. The spirit gone, its body devolves into a pile of sickly worms on the floor. Johnny tucks his shotgun away under his coat. All right, now you can scream. Julie somehow doesn't. She says that she might throw up, though. Vicky tells the rider to cleanse it, and he smashes the worms with his chains. The fires on them spread, cleansing the hospital of this taint. And now Julie does throw up, which is when they all notice that Tulip is gone. Vicky apparently already noticed. The other woman said that she had to do this alone. We then find Tulip in Thailand, after all of Blood Hunt and its shenanigans have ended. She heads into a temple and cautiously draws a gun. Whoever inside doesn't know this, but she needs to be sure first. Inside the temple, of course, is Blade. He looks good, whole, healthy. He's dressed in an orange robe with prayer beads around his neck. His hair has grown out a little bit and his beard is thick. Blade assures Tulip that she doesn't need the gun, but he doesn't want to talk about it. Not Varney, not any of it. Tulip does tuck her pistol away. He doesn't have to talk about anything he doesn't want to. Blade asks if Ghost Rider is still looking for him, and Tulip doesn't think so. She's pretty sure that they all split up by now. Blade tells Tulip that she didn't need to worry about him. No matter what he was going through, he wouldn't let himself kill her. This washes off Tulip like water off a duck. You're better now, right? You're okay? Blade sits down near her, but not next to her. I wish I knew. And we then get a solicitation for Blade's new series coming this October. How is this possible? Like, how can such a clear-cut, easy premise, with characters who have a direct connection to our main villain and our main hero, and are so set up to have an impact on this story, be so uninteresting? This story had nothing to do with anything. The portal to hell is just a regular old portal to hell. It's got nothing to do with Varney. The monster in the hospital has no connection to Varney. Hell, Lilith doesn't even show up again. She wasn't a feature in this story. She was a flooping cameo. One of the biggest villains that the Midnight Suns ever faced, reduced to a cameo. And after saving the day, the Suns don't even get to fight Blade. They don't even get to see him in New York. This isn't just a side quest, it's an elective. This issue is essentially broken into two stories. We've got the exorcism of the monster, and then we've got the ending scene with Blade and Tulip. The one positive that I can give this issue without a doubt is the vibes of the exorcism stuff. Using Julie to summon the monster is a good idea. The Suns have all faced too much horrible stuff for them to be afraid of this kind of threat. As such, they can't act as bait. But Julie's status as a normal person makes her the perfect bait for them. We saw author Brian Hill do something similar last issue, so that works for me. I like it. The general vibes, to be quite honest, are just great. This comic feels like I am reading a horror movie with these long, slow build-ups and an increasing tension that really does work for me. Like, I know I'm upset, but that part of this works. I don't know if the pacing was a deliberate choice on Brian Hill's part or if that was decided by penciler Herman Peralta, but boy does it work, and I like it. Peralta's artwork is, in general, great, to be quite honest. Like I said, he really knows when to let a scene, slow down and let that tension build up, but he also makes the action scenes pretty fast and impactful. Julie's fear monster is a child wearing a clown costume who is also burned, so, he checks a lot of boxes for a scary thing TM. The Suns look good in general, which is honestly a slight ding from me. Peralta's Johnny Blaze looks way prettier than I am used to seeing Johnny being. Blaze is typically kind of beat up looking with a constant 5 o'clock shadow and fairly unkempt, uncleaned hair, especially during the most recent volume of Ghost Rider, which has really emphasized Johnny's suffering as the Ghost Rider. But Peralta's Johnny looks super cleaned up. He's shaved, he's got just a little bit of peach fuzz around his chin. He's got his hair done, his clothes look clean, and Peralta gives everybody some shockingly long eyelashes, so Johnny just looks real pretty here. And overall, I would say this isn't bad, but it is different from what I've been used to. It does feel slightly discongruous from the rest of Johnny's recent existence. Danny Ketch and Vicky Montesi are a little bit harder to judge just because they haven't been appearing anywhere else regularly, so I could forgive any kind of inconsistencies with their looks. Danny Ketch is a brunette white male. Boom, you got Danny Ketch. Victoria Montesi is a dark-haired, shoulder-length hair brunette white woman. Check the box. They look fine. They look good, to be quite honest. The rest of the story elements here kind of just frustrate me. The fear monster that shows up, honestly, isn't interesting. The monster and the portal, like I said, they've got nothing to do with Varney. Lilith doesn't show up again. The Sons don't get to confront their former friend at all. It's all just stuff that happened one day. Like, even the fact that Tulip abandons them before the plot is finished is frustrating to me. I get that her concern is saving Blade as opposed to just helping these normal people, but she had the vision relating to the hospital too. She's the one who brought these people to save her friend. Why would she just stop? Why isn't she pressuring them to do the thing that she wanted them to do, which is go and confront Blade? What does she do when they're working on getting to that step? She just abandons our cast to do what? And another spoiler here, but I'm going to tell you for Bloodhunt issue 5 that Tulip does not show up in that issue, and she has nothing to do with the way this issue resolves. So she just walks out of the narrative, which makes this particular story feel even less important. Not only did this story have nothing to do with saving Blade or stopping Blade, Tulip apparently leaves and then, I don't know, goes and watches a movie or has a nice hot bath because she doesn't do anything in relation to Blade. Thematically, based on our first issue, this is a story that could have been built around heroes who are possessed by evil. You know, Danny and Johnny are possessed by the spirits of vengeance. Vicky was channeling the demons of hell to do good, like Lilith. These possessed heroes use their problems to their advantage to safeguard the world from exactly those kinds of threats. And then over in Bloodhunt, guess what? We've got a possessed man, a former hero. That theming is great. There's a perfect one-to-one connection here. But Hill doesn't do anything with it at all. And then we have the ending. And I hate the ending, too. I hate that Blade is just like, I'm not even going to address Varney. I'm not going to talk about it because I don't want to. Because right now, we still have no explanation for how Blade was possessed, what he experienced during that possession, what does he remember, nothing. And once again, I'm going to spoil it here. When I first read this issue, I thought that that was because Bloodhunt issue 5 was finally going to address those things. We would get like a long kind of maybe like an opening scene flashback sequence of like, here's how Blade got possessed. And then you would go into the issue about him like being saved. They don't. It doesn't. It never happens. Blade's half of Bloodhunt is never explored or addressed in any way. He is just a cog in the story machine. So while I do appreciate Hill just shooting my desire for more information in the face, putting it out of its misery right at the beginning of the scene, it still frustrates me that he has to do so. I do appreciate that Tulip respects that decision. After all, she is less concerned for how Blade got possessed than she is about how Blade is doing now. That makes sense for the character in-universe. And I also appreciate the moment that Blade tells Tulip that he wouldn't have let himself harm her. Maybe his attack in issue 2 had a little bit more of Blade's influence than it looked like in that scene. But we also have Tulip just shrug off the rest of the Midnight Suns. You know, Blade asks, are they still looking for me? And Tulip just shrugs, they went their separate ways. Why do you not care about that, Tulip? You're the one who brought them together again. It's just so flooping casual and dismissive. Tulip went to gosh darn Afghanistan in order to recruit Vicky Montesi. She traveled to the American Southwest. They then went to, I think there was a hospital in Indiana or Illinois. And then she went, you know what? This is hard. I'm out. I don't want to do this. I can see the Midnight Suns going their separate ways relatively quickly. The Midnight Suns have never really been like a traditional super team, like with a headquarters or a stable roster and close bonds of friendship. They're more like a support group, bonded because of their traumatic experiences. they've seen things that most people never have. Like, they're marked, they're changed. And the closest that they can kind of find comfort is either with people like them or being by themselves. They don't really like other people. They don't really want to be around other people. Would they have been worried about Blade? I do think so. But do they care about Blade? Or are they worried about him being an ongoing threat? That's the thing. If he's a threat, I think they're worried. If he's just a person, I honestly don't think that they would care. Caring about Blade was Tulip's job, and honestly, here she is doing it. And so I do appreciate that level of understanding of the Midnight Suns by Brian Hill. My final complaint about Midnight Suns is the cover of issue 3. Drawn by Ken Lashley, the cover is basically like this huge close-up of Blade's face, making like a vampire duck face. I do not understand the expression. And of course, he's got his sunglasses on, and in his glasses, we can see the Midnight Suns reflected, like Blade is facing them down, which never happens! But it's weird. We've got Vicky Montesi, a Ghost Rider, who I'm guessing is Danny Ketch, because there's another guy over somewhere who's got blonde hair, and there's 3 other people who never show up in this story. 2 of them I can identify pretty easily. The black woman with the small circular glasses is Louise Hastings, one of the Darkhold Redeemers, who, if I remember correctly, died in the Darkhold comic back in, 92, 93. The man with the gun is Sam Buchanan, the FBI member who was also one of the Darkhold Redeemers. But this brunette, originally I thought that he was Danny Ketch. But if he's Danny Ketch, then who the floop is the Ghost Rider? This mystery character could be Hannibal King, who often wore a long coat and did have longer hair. This cover nods at almost all of the OG Midnight Suns, at least some of them. The only character who really doesn't show up is Morbius, which to me is a huge shame because I like that character, but he did appear in the Amazing Spider-Man Blood Hunt tie-in, which I didn't like, which is why I didn't cover it on the show. And as we know, most of these characters don't appear in the story. We get no Luis, we get no Sam. When Luis dies, her grandson, her relation, a young man who goes by the code name Jinx, hooks up with the Darkhold Redeemers. I don't think technically he would be a Midnight Sun, but he is part of the Darkhold Redeemers. He's popped up elsewhere in the Marvel Universe since, but very, very rarely. For me, this miniseries is perhaps the most frustrating out of all of the ones that I read that were tie-ins for Blood Hunt. And a lot of that frustration stems from the fact that I do count myself as a fan of the Midnight Suns. I have bought all of those comics. I have read all of those comics. I see an untapped potential in these characters and their corner of the Marvel Universe. And to see it just so underserved in general is confounding. And then to have a book that I really had high expectations for here and to not really like it frustrates the ever-loving crap out of me. Secondly, while I do like author Brian Hill's continued use of Tulip as the last guy to write Blade, I hate how little this story does to explore his story or to bridge the Blade series to the Blood Hunt event, or impact on Blood Hunt at all, or give us something interesting to look forward to at the end. This ending scene doesn't tease like a fascinating development or change with Blade, it just shows us that he's alive and unnerved. That's not exactly an intriguing ending, right? Hermaine Peralta did a solid job on the artwork, though. I cannot stress that enough. Thank you for listening to my rant. I honestly didn't think after Strange Academy 3 I could be this upset about another Blood Hunt ending issue. And then here I am. Between Black Panther, Strange Academy, and Midnight Suns, these books don't know how to end. Breakdown's next episode will cover our final issue. Let's hope this one can break the streak, because it's Blood Hunt issue 5, and we're bringing this saga to a close. If you enjoyed this episode of Breakdown, please make sure to hit that like button, and if you are not subscribed to the show, then click on that as well. I love getting feedback, and I would really appreciate it if you did so. If you have any questions, concerns, or would like to suggest a comic or a series to me, Breakdown can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and on a variety of podcast platforms, with links in the description for this episode below, as well as the email cbbreakdown@gmail.com. Thank you for your time and attention.